Welcome to the Effortless English Show with the world's #1 English teacher, AJ Hogue, where AJ's more than 40 million students worldwide finally learn English once and for all without the boring textbooks, classrooms, and grammar drills. Here's AJ with a quick piece to help you learn to speak fluent English effortlessly.
Hi, I'm AJ Hogue, the author of Effortless English. Learn to speak English like a native. Go to effortlessenglishclub.com. Join my VIP program at effortlessenglishclub.com. Book club today, Effortless English Book Club, EE Book Club. Hashtag EE Book Club. Continuing with Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Today we finish chapter 1. We do the second part, the second half of chapter 1. Let's learn how to be rich. Continuing, let's just start. Here we go. Starting where we stopped. So again, in the middle here, the middle of the chapter, he gives us the big lesson. The rich don't work for money. Lesson number 1. I'll show my screen here for those of you who are watching. Lesson number 1, the rich don't work for money. I think he wants us to realize this. He's repeating it a lot. Repetition is the mother of skill. Repetition helps us to remember. That's why he's repeating it, because he's saying, look, this is very, very important. The rich don't work for money. This is one of the key wrong ideas that most people have about getting rich. They think they need to work more, get a better job, that's how you get rich. That's how you have financial freedom. And he's saying, no, it's wrong. The rich don't work for money. Now, at the end of our last book club, little Robert, who was, I think, about 9 years old, remember, he went to Rich Dad. Rich Dad is his friend's dad. His name is Mike. And Mike's dad is a businessman. He owns a lot of different businesses. And so Robert wants to be rich. He asked his own dad. That's the poor dad in this story. He asked his own dad, Dad, how do I be rich? And his dad said, I don't know. I'm a school teacher. I don't know how to be rich. And he said, you should ask Mike's dad. He has a lot of businesses. He's going to be very rich. So he went to Mike's dad. Mike's dad said, okay, I will teach you to be rich, but you have to work for me on the weekend. Right? He's just 9 years old, but he says, you have to work in one of my businesses, doing work. Robert did that for a while, then he got really upset. He was sick of working. He didn't like the job. He was getting paid very little money. So he went back to Rich Dad, and he said, upset, he says, I'm quitting, and this is terrible. And then the Rich Dad explained to him, some lessons about money. The main one being that, look, you're learning that working for money is no fun. I'm teaching you. I'm not teaching you like school. I'm teaching you with experience. And you're learning through experience that working for money, number 1, you're not going to get rich this way. And number 2, it's not very fun. So finally, little Robert calms down. And Rich Dad said, okay, do you want me to continue to teach you? And Robert, he's a kid. He's not happy about the situation, but he says, okay. And then Rich Dad says, okay, I will continue to teach you, but now you must work for free. For free. You must do the same job for free. I'm not going to pay you anything, nothing at all, no pay. You're working just to learn only. Robert Kiyosaki calls this, earn to learn or work to learn. So that's the beginning of where we start today. So Robert's like, oh man, he's not so excited about this, obviously, but he wants to be rich. He realizes that Rich Dad, Mike's dad, is a smart guy, that he's a good businessman, that he knows about money, and he realizes that no one else can teach him. So he agrees. So he works a few more weeks. I think he works about 3 more weeks. And now he's not getting paid anything, nothing. He doesn't tell his dad, the poor dad, his real dad. He does not tell his dad, oh, Dad, now I'm getting nothing. He's afraid his dad might be upset. So he just works for free. And, it's no fun. And now he's getting no pay. Finally, the rich dad comes back one day and said, okay, boys, because it's his own son, Mike, also. So they're both boys, Robert and Mike. He says, come walk with me. And they go for a walk. And he says, did you learn anything yet? Rich dad says, have you learned anything yet? 3 more weeks working for no money. What have you learned? And the boys just kind of, they shrug their shoulders. I mean, they put their shoulders up like, I don't know. Right? They're kids, so, they don't know. What did they learn? I don't know. So then the rich dad says, look, you are looking at one of the biggest lessons in life. This is one of the most important lessons in life. You need to think. Think about this. So they're, I don't know. So he says, okay, what if I give you, I'll give you money again. I'll pay you some money. I'll give you 25 cents per hour. That's a raise. Before he was paying them 10 cents an hour, so double the money. He says, how about I will pay you 25 cents per hour. So first you were getting 10 cents, then nothing. Now I'll pay you 25 cents. How about that? What do you think? And Robert kind of realized he's trying to trick me, right? So Robert says, no. And he says, okay, how about I give you $1 per hour? And then Robert's like, oh, that's a lot of money at this time. This is 1950s, 1956. And Robert says, well, no. He says, okay, I'll give you $2 per hour for doing this job. But I'm not going to teach you anymore, but I will pay you $2 an hour, which is a lot of money in 1956. He says it was 1956, and that would make me the richest kid in the world. I couldn't imagine making that much money. I started to imagine all of the things I could buy. I could buy a new bicycle. I could buy a new baseball glove. All my friends would be amazed at how much money I had. But then he realized, he said, I know he was testing us. He was testing me. He was testing us. So Robert says again, no, not $2 an hour. He realizes there's some trick. So then the rich dad says, okay, $5 an hour. I will pay you $5 per hour working. Which at that time, for a kid 9 years old, that's a huge amount of money. And he said, I became silent. And I realized something was wrong. Because most adults in 1956 didn't even make that much starting at their first job. He says, I became calm and I realized I'm not going to say yes. There's no amount of money. I'm not going to say yes. He's starting to learn the lesson. And he realized there's no price. I want to learn how to be rich. I don't want to just be paid by him working this job I don't like. And the rich dad says, good. He says, look, most people have a price. Most people have a price. If you keep going up, eventually most people will say, okay, yes, pay me that and I'll do it. And he said, most people are controlled by two emotions with money. Fear and greed. Fear and greed control most people financially with money. He says fear of being without money, fear of not having money, makes people work hard and get the paycheck. Get the paycheck. And want to take, a job that pays that pays enough, and they're afraid of losing the job. Fear of not having enough money. And then the other side, greed. Greed makes us think about all the great things we can buy. If we get more money, we start to get greedy. We imagine all the good things we can buy. Now, as a child, he was imagining a baseball glove and a bicycle, but as, adults, cars and houses and travel and nice hotels and whatever, jewelry, And he says, this is the pattern. This is the trap. He calls it a trap. It grabs people and makes them slaves to money. It's the fear plus the greed creates the trap, and they're trapped for their life. Most people are trapped all of their life by money, by the fear and the greed. He says, this is the trap that makes people get up, go to work, pay their bills. Get up, go to work, pay their bills. Going every day, get up, go to work, pay bills. Get up, go to work, pay bills. Get up, go to work, pay bills. Most people, many people, probably most, going to jobs they don't even like, jobs they think are boring, jobs that they don't enjoy, that they really don't really want to do. And so people's lives are forever controlled. I'm reading from the book now. People's lives are forever controlled by two emotions, fear and greed. If you offer them more money, they will just increase their spending. They'll buy more. He says, this is what I call the rat race. The rat race. Now that is an idiom, actually, the rat race, kind of slang idiom. The rat race, very common, very, very, very common in American English, the rat race. The rat race is exactly what he describes. When people say, oh, I'm tired of the rat race, it means this every day is the same, right? And every day is kind of this boring work. Get up, right? The same pattern. Get up, get dressed, get in the car, drive for an hour to get to work, go to the office, work in the office, boring, work all day, come home, drive one more hour home, come home, turn on the TV, watch the TV, go eat dinner, go to bed. Next day, exactly the same. Next day, exactly the same. Next day, exactly the same. Over and over and over and over and over and over. So we say in American English, we say rat race. We call this the rat race. It's not positive, right? It's negative. It means you're living like a little rat, not like a full human. So finally, Mike, his little friend, says, well, is there another way? Is there another way, right? We don't like the rat race. We already see. We don't like working this job. And it doesn't really matter how much you pay us. It's no fun. And Rich Dad says, yes. Very few people find the different way. Very few people escape the rat race, but it is possible. He says the first step is telling the truth. The first step to escape is to tell the truth about how you're feeling. So he says, most people they're not honest about their fear and their greed. They don't look at their feelings. They don't look at their fear and their greed with money. What happens is, maybe they're unhappy. They feel like they don't have enough money. Then suddenly they get more money. And when they have more money in their hands, then they have emotions. They feel happy. They feel desire. They feel greed. They feel excitement. Then they go spend the money and they buy expensive stuff. And they feel good for a short time. But then the money's gone. Now they need more money. So then they go back to work and try to make more money. And then they get kind of bored and depressed again. And then they're afraid of losing it. Then they get more money. Then they go out and run out and buy more stuff. They get excited. And it's just this cycle, right? Fear of losing money, fear of not having enough, and then the excitement and the greed of having more. So he says money is running their lives. Running their lives means controlling their lives. Money is controlling their lives. And they won't tell the truth about it. This is the first problem. The first problem is they won't be honest about it. Most people will say, no, 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 I'm fine. No, 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 everything's okay. Most people don't want to be honest and say, yes, I'm a slave to money. Yes, I'm miserable at my job. Yes, I'm controlled by money. I'm controlled by fear. I'm controlled by greed. Most people will make an excuse. And he's saying this is why just being rich, just having a lot of money will not completely solve the problem. He says, that's why I want to teach you not only to be rich, I want to teach you to be the master of money. Because if you just become rich, if you just get a lot of money, but you're still controlled by fear, you're still controlled by greed, then you're not really free. So he says, you must be free. He's saying to be truly rich is to be free. And I agree. He says another word, a different word, instead of greed, you can call it desire. Desire is the same idea. Desire. And he says the problem with this desire, the greed, is that many times, money, if you get a lot of money, like if you suddenly got 10,000 extra dollars right now, you would probably be happy. Most people would be happy and exciting. But he says the problem is that the happiness that comes from money usually lasts a short time. It only makes you happy a short time. You have the excitement, you feel great. Then you get used to having the extra money. And then all that happiness and excitement just goes away. Then you need even more money to feel the same excitement again. So then you run out and you try to get even more. And okay, you get even more money. Now you get $100,000. And again, you're excited and you have fun and you spend the money or whatever you do with it. You feel great for a while, but then you get used to having that or you spend it all. Then the happiness, the excitement goes away, disappears again, and now you need even more. He says, so these people, they're thinking that money will, get rid of their fear and desire, but money can't do that. You have to do that yourself first. To master money, you have to become the master of your fear and your desire. Then, when you get money, you're controlling it. It's not controlling you. He makes another point about people who get suddenly rich or who are controlled by money, even if they have a lot. They're afraid of losing it. He says, I know people who have millions of dollars, but they're more afraid now than when they were poor. They are terrified, very afraid of losing all their money. So they're controlled by fear. Even though they have a lot of money, they're still controlled by fear. They still have lots and lots of fear. They're not happy just because they're rich. We see this. Just look at celebrities, famous actors and musicians and athletes. A lot of them are unhappy, very unhappy people. A lot of them have mental problems. All that money hasn't helped them. Even being so famous hasn't made them happy. In fact, seems to make them even more unhappy. They become more afraid because then they become afraid of losing it, losing the fame, losing all that money. So that's not really being rich, he's saying. Rich Dad's saying that's not the way to be truly rich. Then he talks about jobs again. Job is also not the solution. He says, in my opinion, a job is not the solution. A job is a short-term solution only. It helps in the short term, like if you're hungry, if you need to pay your rent, well, yeah, maybe you need a job right now. That's a short-term solution to help your basic needs, but for long-term, a job will not solve your money problems. A job will not make you the master of money. Robert talks about his poor dad, his real dad. He said, my dad always tells me, stay in school, get a good job. And Rich Dad said, your dad is controlled by fear. So again, this is another kind of control by fear. He says, your dad is afraid you won't get enough money. He's afraid you won't fit into society. So because of his fear, he's telling you to go to school and then get a job, a secure, safe job. It's because your dad's afraid for you. So he's saying, what I'm going to teach you, what I want to teach you, is to master the power of money instead of being afraid of it. Instead of fearing money, instead of fearing losing money, whether you're rich or poor or in the middle, I want you to master the fear. He says, you also must take responsibility. You must be responsible. You have the control. Financial freedom means you are in control of it. He says, you being rich or you having financial freedom, it's not controlled by the economy. It's not controlled by the government. He says, you must not let your emotions control your thinking. So, this is interesting because he's talking about money, but in many ways, this is psychology. This is emotion. This is almost like meditation he's teaching him in the beginning. And then he tells him that if you don't do this, you're not living the best life you can. If you spend your life living in fear, if you never explore your dreams, that is cruel. Cruel means really mean, right? It's terrible. It's a horrible thing to not try to live your dreams, to explore your biggest dreams. That's horrible if you live in fear, and that fear prevents you from doing that. If you wake up in the middle of the night afraid about paying your bills, right? Paying your debts, paying your loans, paying your bills. If you wake up worried about that, that's a horrible way to live. Thinking that a job makes you secure, makes you safe, that's lying to yourself. Jobs are not safe. They're not secure. Right? The company can cut you anytime. Anytime. It can happen suddenly. It can be a big surprise. Suddenly your job is gone. So he says, do not let money run your life. That means do not let money control your life. He says the other problem, we have fear and greed. There's one more problem, and that's ignorance. Right? Ignorance, meaning not understanding, not knowing, not understanding how money works. That's another cause of people's problems. They have the wrong ideas about money, so they try to do the wrong things, and then they're controlled by their fear, they're controlled by their greed, and it's never ending. So like the first step that you have to do is learn how to think even when you have strong emotions. You have to learn how to think clearly even when you have strong emotions. Because you might feel a lot of fear. You might feel greed, but instead of letting those emotions control you, you have to be able to calm the emotions enough that you can still think clearly. You can make clear decisions, not controlled by the emotions. Finally, he says, this is a really interesting sentence. He says, the rich know that money is an illusion, which means it's not real. It's not real. It's imaginary. Money is something imaginary. We just made it up. Human beings made it up. It only works because of confidence, because most people agree to believe it. You can see what he's talking about, right? If we take some money, it's just a piece of paper, or it's just numbers on a screen. There's nothing real about it. It's not an actual real thing. If suddenly, there's a big disaster and there's no food, you can't eat the money, right? That's what he's saying. It's an illusion. It's this thing that we created. And it's in this way, it's a kind of a game, really. And he says the rich know this. The rich know it's a game. And so they play the game well, and they play it like a game, and they play to win. Whereas poor and middle class actually believe that money is real, and it's not real at all. He says, instead of looking for just money and being too focused on this illusion of money, you need to be looking instead for opportunities. Don't focus so much on money. Don't focus on security and safety. Focus on opportunities. Opportunities for what? We're going to learn. So he says, keep thinking, keep talking, keep working for free. So I'm not going to pay you, but I want you to start looking for opportunities. Look for opportunities just anywhere in your life. Anywhere in your life, keep looking for opportunities to make some money, to create money. Not like with the nickels, right? But little business opportunities is basically what he's telling him. And so, a couple of weeks later, the boys noticed that at a comic book store, there's a comic book store that they like. They like comic books. And they go in and they notice one day that there's someone working there who's cutting the front page, the first page, cutting the cover off of the comic books, just cutting them off and then throwing them away. And the boys are like, well, why are you doing that? Why are you throwing them away? And, they explain these are the old ones that nobody bought. So we just throw away the old comic books that people don't buy. And Robert and Mike they start talking and they get an idea. They see an opportunity. And they think, okay, will you give them to us? We'll take them. We'll take the old comic books. If you're just throwing them away, can you just give them to us instead? We'll take them away for you. And the woman who's working there agrees. She says, okay, great. And what they do is they get hundreds of comic books. They get a lot of them and they put them in a little room. And it's in the basement, Mike's basement. So that's the bottom underneath the house in a room. And they get a lot of them and they decide to create a comic book library for kids. They create a comic book library with all of these old free comic books that they got. They hired Mike's little sister to be the librarian, right? To kind of just watch everything. And they charge each child 10 cents to go into the library. And the library's only open, 2 hours a day after school. So it's a little kid's business. But they start making money. They make money. They says, Mike and I average $9.50 per week. We paid his sister $1 a week and allowed her to read the comics for free. So they made $8.50 total per week, which in 1956 is pretty good for kids. So they do this for 3 months. They do it for 3 months, and then, there's something happens in the comic book library, a fight. A couple kids get in a fight, some bullies from another neighborhood came to their comic book library and started trying to steal the comic books, and they got in a fight. And at this time, Rich Dad says, okay, look, I think you learned enough. I said, your comic book library was a good idea. You found an opportunity. You created a little business. You started making money. You made money instead of just asking for a job from someone else, right? You're looking for opportunities instead. You're starting to learn. You learned the main lesson I wanted to teach you. So he says, I suggest, go close your library. Just go ahead and close it because I have more lessons to teach you. So I want you to focus on these other lessons. But, good job with that comic book library, but it's time for us to do something else. And then Robert says, he realized that because Rich Dad did not pay them at all and instead said, look for opportunities. I'm not going to pay you anything. You have to look around for opportunities in your life. It took some time, but eventually, they had to use their imaginations. They had to identify an opportunity to make money. He says, by starting our own business, the comic book library, like starting our own business, we were in control of our money, right? We were not dependent on an employer, right? We were not working for an employer. Please pay me, employer, please pay me. They were in control. They were the owners. And he said, the best part about our business, we made money even when we were not there, right? Because they paid Mike's little sister to be an employee, to watch the library and to collect the money. So they could go play a baseball game while his sister worked there, and they still made money. So he said, instead of paying us, Rich Dad had given us so much more. He gave them a great lesson in life. They learned after. It took a while, it took many months, but they finally learned this great lesson of life. Fantastic. And that is the end of chapter 1. The end of chapter 1. So we go from at the beginning of chapter 1, little Robert wants to be rich. First he asks his dad, teach me how to be rich. His dad has no idea, just says, well, get a good job. Then he goes to Rich Dad, his friend's dad, Mike's dad. Rich Dad first kind of tricks him, and Rich Dad's dad teaches with experience. He doesn't just tell him everything. He wants Robert and Mike to both learn from experience. So he gives them a job that's really, he knows they're going to hate the job, right? So they hate the job, it's boring. First he pays them a little money. Robert gets mad, wants to quit. He changes his mind. Then he says, now you have to work for free. So, now Robert's really upset. And then finally he comes back and he says, okay, look, I'm going to teach you something. And he teaches him about fear, teaches him about greed, overcoming those, teaches him about ignorance. And he says, how do you overcome all this? He says, you have to see that money's a game. It's not real. Don't let money control you because it's not real. It's a game. You just need to be looking for opportunities. It's imaginary. You're creating it. Imagine that you're just creating money with opportunities. So start looking for opportunities to make money, to create it. And so what he's saying is look for business opportunities. Look for business opportunities. And, the boys finally, in the end, decide this idea to try a comic book library, and it's successful, and they make some money from it. Do they become rich? No, they're just little kids, but they do a good job. Rich Dad's very happy that they've learned a very important lesson. And we'll see in the next chapter, it's time for more lessons. But this is great. This is really fantastic. It's interesting because in many ways, I think a lot of entrepreneurs have a childhood story like this. Again, an entrepreneur is someone who starts their own business. So I can remember as a kid, also, I just had this desire to do this kind of thing. And I didn't have a rich dad, but I just was looking for opportunities. Some kids just have this naturally. They just, they kind of just, I think it's good if their parents don't spoil them, right? It doesn't matter how much money their parents make. If the parents don't spoil them, don't give them money. Instead, if the kid has to, like Robert, be creative and use his imagination or her imagination and think of ways to make money instead, then it's great because then the kid can start thinking more like an entrepreneur, learns this lesson naturally. And I kind of did that. My parents would give me, it's called an allowance. It's kind of like a paycheck for a kid, right? But it was very small. I couldn't buy much with it. And, I remember I wanted to buy a new bike one time. Or some toy or something, and they wouldn't buy it for me. So then I had to start thinking, how can I make more money? Right? And at first I did the simple things, which was I mentioned before, where I would go around to my neighbor's house and knock on the door and ask to cut the grass, in their yard for $10 or $20 or something. Or occasionally when it snowed, then I would go around and shovel, like I would, go their driveway where they park their car. I would dig the snow off and make some money that way. I was always trying to bug my parents to try to do some extra job so I could get paid some extra money. And then, as I mentioned, as I got older, I started doing things like I would buy gum and candy at the store. I'd buy a lot of it, so it was cheap. So I had a little bit of money. I'd buy a bunch of it. Candy was cheap. Then I would go to school and I would resell it at school. And at school, this is sort of like, there's several businesses that do this. At school, it's called a captive market. Captive market. It means at school, the children cannot leave, right? They cannot leave the classroom. They cannot leave the school. They're like little prisoners. And because of that, they can't go, if they want candy or gum, they can't go get it. And the schools didn't sell it. So they had no choice. I was the only one doing it, the only one selling it. It was kind of a secret because it was illegal. Teachers, we weren't supposed to have that. And certainly they wouldn't want me selling it. But anyway, I didn't care. I was a rebel. So I just started selling it. And then all the kids started learning that I sold gum and sold candy. And I made pretty good money, actually, doing that. Surprisingly good and easy money doing that. And that gave me a good amount of spending money in high school. I did that in high school. But see, that's the example, the kind of example that Robert Kiyosaki's talking about, right? I could have just gone and got a job. That's what most teenagers do. They just go get a job, work at fast food, work some part-time job after school. But instead, I did that. I was already at school, kind of bored at school, honestly. I found school quite boring. And so I would just, during the breaks at school, I would be selling my candy and gum, and in class even doing it sometimes. And then after school, I was totally free. Didn't have to work. Just go do stuff with my friends. Worked very well. Again, I didn't become rich, but I did. It was the first little beginnings. I look back now, I realize, maybe I was kind of a natural entrepreneur in a way. Because then the rest of my life, I kept trying to think of how can I be financially free? And I didn't have Rich Dad to teach me, and I didn't have that book for a long time. I eventually read it. So I had to kind of just figure all this stuff out myself. When I finally did read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I said, yes, this is great. I wish I had this book when I was young. Oh, well. But you have it now. Doesn't matter your age. You can start at any age. You can start at any age. And I think for me, the big lesson of chapter 1, I'd say 2 big lessons. One, he makes a very good point about the emotion. Fear and greed, fear and desire. These 2 emotions that control most people and why most people become slaves of money. It's exactly what I see. I mean, I see it. Every time I talk about this topic, people who have this dream of starting their own business or being freelancers, being self-employed, being somehow financially free, investing, whatever it is, it's when they ask me questions or they have their doubts or they're not sure what to do, it's fear. Fear is the most common one. They're all afraid. They're afraid to fail. They're afraid of making a mistake. They're afraid of criticism. They're afraid, what will other people do? What if I try it and it doesn't work? Fear. He is 100% right about this. Absolutely, he's correct. It is controlling most people, and it's sad. It's sad. You have to master that fear. You've got to learn to master the fear. This is the first step to get financial freedom. The greed, I think that's more common with people who, just the sort of normal people who don't even think about this. People who want to start their own business, I find, often they're not so much controlled by greed, they're more stopped by fear. But we can look in the culture. I mean, look on TV, you see this culture of greed, right? Like all the stars, music stars, they're wearing the big gold chains, and they got the super expensive, clothes and cars, and their TV shows, celebrity TV shows. And the whole point of the TV shows or the reality shows, the main point is just to show how rich they are and how much they have and how they're buying more and more stuff. It's greed. It's a celebration of greed. It's pushing greed. But these are not happy people. If you really look at their lives and look at who they are, they're not happy people. They don't have a lot of meaning in their life. So he's also right about that. Just getting a lot of money will not solve your problem if you're still controlled by fear and greed, it's not, it's better than starving. It's probably better than being poor, but maybe not. Not necessarily. See, people who don't have much money just think they can't understand this point. But he's 100% right about this. That in many, 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 many cases, people are happier when they have less, or when they had less. There are many, many, many stories. I mean, just look at all the different famous celebrity stories. People who didn't have much money. Maybe they're working like as a waiter or a waitress, and they're working hard. They want to be an actor. They're going to acting classes. They're acting in little small plays in the theater. They're not really making much money, but they're doing okay. They're doing okay, right? They're not miserable, but they got the big dream to be a big star. And then finally, boom, they get the big break and they're in a big movie. And then suddenly they're famous and they start getting millions of dollars. They get paid millions of dollars for every movie. And they buy all the stuff, only the most expensive fashions, and only the most expensive cars and servants. And they have 10 houses and their private jet and all of this stuff. And then they kill themselves. Or they become drug addicts, or alcoholics. Or they get arrested. They destroy their lives. They were actually happier when they were a waiter or a waitress. This is not just a one-time story. In fact, this is a very, very, very common story. If you look at musicians, actors, athletes, this is a very common story. And it shows exactly what Robert Kiyosaki's trying to say about if you're still controlled by the fear or the greed or both, you're not going to be happy, and more money will not solve your problem. You've got to master money. And you got to master the psychology first, these emotions. Because a lot of these people, a lot of the stars, you can see it. You can see that they're controlled by fear. They become famous. Maybe it's not the money, maybe it's more the fame and the attention. But you can see where they get the fame, they get the attention. This is great. And then, maybe their career starts to drop. Maybe their movies make less money. And suddenly they're getting less famous. They're getting less attention. And they become almost crazy, right? They start doing crazy stuff just to get attention, trying to stay famous. They're afraid, they're terrified of losing the fame, of losing the attention. Many of them do lose that fame. And this also happens with the money, because they know these people are not smart about money. They're not the masters of money. So when they're making a lot of money, you think they're rich, they look rich, but if they lose their career, if they stop making millions of dollars from movies, they have a huge amount of debt, huge, because they've bought 10 houses and 20 Ferraris and all this other stuff. And so this is why you were always surprised. You read in the news about somebody, some huge star like Johnny Depp or something, and then you read they're bankrupt. You're like, how could they be bankrupt? They're making $20 million per year. How could they possibly be bankrupt? It's because they don't really understand money. They're not the masters of money. They're getting a lot of it from their acting job, but they really don't understand it. And so they're just spending it like crazy, and they're actually getting huge amounts of debt. They actually have in really bad financial shape, and then maybe their career drops a little bit. They stop getting the same acting jobs. And then suddenly, the money is gone. It's crazy. And many of them are terrified, very afraid of this. Once they have all that, they're afraid of losing it, so their life is filled with fear. Or greed, right? I mean, when you think about it, that's the other side of it, which I think is sad and shows a deep unhappiness, is if you have, let's say you do have $10 million, $20 million, and all you can focus on is just more. Like I've got 3 Ferraris, now I need a Lamborghini, now I need this, now I need that. And they just keep collecting more and more and more cars, more and more and more motorcycles, more and more houses. I mean, who needs 10 houses? It's ridiculous, right? Why do they do it? It's just this kind of endless greed, it's uncontrolled greed. They are controlled by the greed. They're not thinking logically, right? Because logically and financially it's a stupid thing to do. It's really stupid to own 10 houses. I don't care how rich you are. It's stupid. Houses cost you money. You lose money from houses usually. So they're controlled by greed. They're controlled by fear. They're not financially free. They're still the slaves of money. So these are good lessons to learn. I'm glad that Kiyosaki puts them in the first chapter. So he wants us to be thinking correctly about money before he starts talking about more lessons, to really understand these ideas. These are the things that truly rich people understand that others don't. Like Warren Buffett understands these things. Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world, one of the greatest investors in the world. And, you ever see how he dresses? He's not wearing the most expensive fashions. He's got billions of dollars, and he still doesn't do it. I've read interviews with him, and he says, well, just because I'm rich doesn't mean I'm stupid. Doesn't mean I'm going to waste my money on stupid things. He says, that's why I became rich. That's why I'm rich, right? That's why I'm wealthy, because I'm smart about money. And now that I have a lot of money, I'm still smart about it. That's why I'm going to keep it. That's why I'm the master of money. Whereas Johnny Depp, for example, you may like him as an actor, but he's pretty stupid about money. It's a big difference. That's the difference between people who are truly rich, who truly are masters of money and are financially free, and people who just get a lot, but they remain slaves to money. And the reason you want to be the master of money is because that's how you become free and happier, so that you're in control of the money's not in control of you. So that was our first that's like a huge lesson of the chapter. I 100% agree with what he's saying. And then right at the end, we get another, this is sort of the problem. He's describing the major problem. That's what a lot of the chapter's about. And probably most of the chapter is really describing the problem that most people have about money. But right at the end, we get a little taste, we get a little lesson about the solution, one of the solutions. The first part of that is just the idea of controlling your emotions instead of your emotions controlling you. Yes, you might feel greed and fear, but you need to be aware of it. He's basically describing a meditation technique of learning how to let go of emotion and to continue thinking clearly. Notice the emotion, notice the feelings, but don't be controlled by them. And then he says, well, what do you focus on instead? What will you be thinking about instead? Instead of the greed and the fear, focus on opportunities. Look for opportunities. Realize, change your idea of money. Instead of money being this magical thing, this real thing that has all this power, that's real and you must get it. It's like, just think of it as an illusion. It's an illusion. It's a game. And then if you do that, when you start seeing money as a game, you relax more. The fear relaxes. And even the greed relaxes, because then you're more like playing. Now you're playing. Now money is something you're playing to get. And if you lose some, well, that's part of the game sometimes. Sometimes you lose it. Sometimes you make it. Seeing it as a game, as not real, and as a game, helps to control the fear and the greed. It helps you to let go. It helps to lessen those emotions, because you start seeing, it's a game. I lost some. It's not real. Doesn't matter. I'm okay. And if a lot of it comes, it's the same thing. You don't get too excited about it because, hey, it's a game. Great, I got some this time. And then the next part of that game then is you just start looking for opportunities. Let's look for an opportunity. Where can I find in my life? And he found comic books. And this is a great way, by the way, to get started, is to look in your life and just focus on things that you are super excited and passionate about, that you know a lot about. Like, it could be a sport, it could comic books, it could be reading, it could be a hobby you have. It could be your profession, what you do for a living and to make money. It could be anything. Like, the comic book. I like this example because it just shows that it could be something very simple. And of course, it's a kid's example, but it's the right idea, right? My gum and my candy example. That's a great one. Here's something that a lot of people could do right now. Right now, they could do it. You could just have a little business on eBay or at a local small market. We call them flea markets in English. Flea market is this like local small market, and people just bring anything, any stuff. It might be furniture, it might be artwork, anything they can find. They bring to the flea market and they sell it. It's usually just extra stuff they have. But some people make whole businesses doing this, and people do this also on eBay. There's an opportunity. If you're smart, you can do exactly what I did with the gum and the candy bars. And what you do is you find something that you can get cheaply, maybe, locally in your town or something. Maybe you know somebody, and you get it cheaply, and then you you resell it on eBay for a higher price. And you make a profit because you bought it cheaper, and you sell it more expensive. You have a little side business suddenly. It's really easy. Now, you might make a lot of money, you might not, but it's good practice. It's a really good practice. People who are afraid to start their own business because they think it has to be some huge, big thing, so the fear stops them. Well, this kind of little business is a great way to start learning about business, to start thinking about opportunities, to really get in the game of money, get in the game of business in a small way that's not so scary and that's very low risk. You're still going to learn great things. You're going to learn about looking for those opportunities of when you can buy something or make something or do something cheaply and then sell it at a higher price. And that's a very great way to make some money. There are huge businesses that are built just on that tactic, that strategy. Buy something cheaply or make it cheaply and then sell it more expensively. You'll also learn by doing this kind of little business, you'll learn how to sell better. You'll have to start learning some sales skills. If it's a local market where you're face-to-face, you're going to have to talk to people and sell them. They might walk up and let's say they want to buy this little tripod. You're selling these little tripods. You found them cheap somewhere, or you make them yourself, or you have a friend that makes them. And you go to the little market and you have a table and you're selling tripods to everybody. Well, if you just sit there and you put the tripods on a table and you just sit there and do nothing, you're probably not selling many tripods that day. Maybe you get lucky. Maybe there's a lot of people in your town want to buy tripods, but probably not going to sell many unless you get good at marketing and selling, right? Now, this could be, you might just start shouting, tripods for sale. Use your phone, take great pictures, improve your pictures with this tripod. It'll keep your phone steady. And you start shouting out all the benefits of your tripod, getting the attention of people who are walking around, telling them why this is great. And then some people will hear you and, oh, well, actually, maybe there's people, if you do a good job, if you learn the skill, you need to practice. But if you do a good job, you'll start selling a lot more of these tripods because you're learning how to sell now, a super valuable skill for making money. One of, I think, the most important skill, actually. And then maybe you might say, well, I'm going to start selling these on eBay now. I can reach more people on eBay. So then you have to learn about marketing and selling on the internet, which is a little different than just shouting, right? So then you gotta take a picture of your tripod, make it look really like it's a really nice product. Then you gotta write about it. Again, writing about all the benefits of the tripod, how it helps you, take good pictures. You can do live video streaming, and the tripod, creates a more stable image, and your hands are free if you use this little tripod. It's portable, it's light, it's cheap, I can go on and on about this, but you learn how to do this in writing and with pictures, maybe even a video where you're talking about it and showing it. See, this is my new business. I'm going to start selling tripods. This is exactly what you do. This is how you do it. It could be anything. And then you put that ad up and you start testing different advertisements and selling on eBay. And if you do a good job and you learn, you're going to start selling these tripods on eBay. And then you might get even bigger business. You might start selling a lot of these. Maybe you sell small, maybe you sell a huge amount. I don't know, but you're going to learn something anyway. You're definitely going to learn, even if it's some small thing like this. I mean, whoever made this is a company called Elecom. This is probably a multi-million-dollar company, I'm guessing. I don't know for sure, but somebody's probably getting rich from making these and selling them. And you could still probably have a decent income reselling them if you're smart about it, if you find the opportunities, right? So you can see it could be anything. It could be furniture. It could be these kind of things. Selling little products like this at a little market or on eBay, I think is a great way to learn, just like Robert is learning from Rich Dad. Because the best way to learn about money and opportunities and mastering money and starting your own business or being a freelancer is to just do it. Do it in a small way first. Right? Too many people, they think, if I start my own business, I gotta, they're thinking Silicon Valley, right? They're thinking millions of dollars and lots of people working for them and big offices and all this stuff. That's, no. You don't do that. I mean, that's a huge project and very, 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 very tough. You need to think little. Selling gum, selling candy, selling little tripods, selling furniture, selling little artwork that you do. Or you can also sell services. This is more like self-employment, but it's still better than, you're still going to find opportunities. It's still, a step towards financial freedom. So maybe instead of something you make or buy and resell, maybe it's instead something you do. Again, from my childhood, right? I was cutting grass. So if I wanted to sound professional, I'd call that landscaping, right? But I was just cutting people's grass. I was digging up the snow when the snow came because it's hard work. People don't want to do it. So I would go around. I did a service. So I had a little business. It was a service business. You can also do that. Maybe there are things you're good at. I don't know what you're good at, but you got to look for the opportunities. A great way this is another question I get a lot is, what should I do? How do I know what to try? The best way to know is look for problems and then solve them. And where do you look for problems? In your own life. That's the easiest place to look. We all get frustrated at different times, right? With some service, with some problem in our life, whatever it is. Look for someone who's frustrated, or look in your own life when you're frustrated, and then you think, can I solve that problem? Can I help somebody who also has this problem? If the answer is yes, someone will probably pay you to do it. I'll give you an example from my own life. This week, I was really frustrated. My computer kept crashing. I tried to get a hold of the big company, Apple, their support. I had a lot of frustration. If I knew somebody locally who was like a Mac expert, I would have paid them. I would have happily paid them to come over here, look at my computer, and solve that problem instead of me dealing with it for hours and hours and hours. That's a great service right there. That's a business. And again, these little businesses, what's so great about them, they're great for learning. You learn the basic skills of sales, marketing, services, products, pricing, all these very important fundamental skills of business. And they're also low risk, and you can do them part-time. You can continue doing whatever you're doing, whether if you're a stay-at-home mom, you can still do this little side business in some extra time, especially if your kids are a little older, going to school. When they're at school, you could be working your eBay business or doing your little service business. Or if you're working a job full-time, you could do something on the weekends or in the evenings. So these little businesses are a great way to learn. And again, they're low risk. You're not going to lose a lot of money. You may not make a lot of money, but you might. You might still make decent money. That extra money could be great. And if you do make some money, you can save it and you can then use it to start an even bigger business. We're going to talk about all that. That's future chapters. For right now, I just want you to think about those emotions that he talked about and how to overcome them. Start seeing money as more like a game and start looking for these opportunities and looking for the little ones. Look for these little opportunities. They're really everywhere. They're everywhere. You just have to change the way you think. Okay, as always, go to effortlessenglishclub.com. Join my VIP program. Learn English with me. Learn to speak English fluently and powerfully and with strong persuasion skills. Join my VIP program. Lots of love to you. See you next time. effortlessenglishclub.com.